Okay, Rabotai, we are starting Hilchot Netilat Yadayim L'Seudah. Hilchot Netilat Yadayim L'Seudah. Shalach Rabbi Yosef, you can take Sefer, page 53 in the Tzurba. Before we start in the Tzurba, I want to just read the first lines of the introduction of Hilchot Netilat Yadayim from the Yalkut Yosef Berachot, volume 1. Okay, so on page 65, he starts off. The mitzvah of washing hands before eating bread is not a mitzvah of the Torah. It's no mitzvah from the Torah. Okay, that's just the first line to start off. Netilat Yadayim L'Seudah is not a mitzvah from the Torah. So now our question is, where does this mitzvah come from? So we're going to have to see. There's two opinions where this mitzvah comes from, but according to the main opinion, the first opinion is that it's actually a gezerah of a gezerah of a gezerah, and it came over in different times. There's one gezerah, then another gezerah, another gezerah, and that led to Netilat Yadayim before we eat bread. Okay, so let's start off with our first source for Netilat Yadayim. So what does Netilat Yadayim do? Right? What are we doing? We're washing our hands, sort of cleaning them, right? Now, in halacha, if you become tameh, right, even if you touched it with your hand, something tameh, right, your whole body becomes tameh, right? You cannot say, oh, the sheretz is just in my hand. No, it's the whole guf. You have to go to the whole guf, has to go to mikvah. So where does the Netilat Yadayim come from? Why is it made? Where did it come from? So we start off the Gemara, the Sechet Eruvin, Chaf Aleph Amud Bet. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. B'sha'ah shetiken Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. So it's of a biblical period, right? B'sha'ah shetiken Shlomo Eruvin b'Netilat Yadayim. Shlomo HaMelech, right, of an Erev Chatzarot, and Netilat Yadayim. And when this happened, Yotz the Bat Kol Amra Beni Im Chacham Libecha Yismach Libi Gamani. Okay, so Hashem was very happy when he made this gezerot. So we see that Shlomo HaMelech made a gezerah for Netilat Yadayim. Now, where did his gezerah, for what? Netilat Yadayim for what? Doesn't say for what. Just said he made a gezerah to wash hands. Doesn't say for when and for what. Where was it? So let's take a look of Rashi. Rashi says v'Yadayim, right? Netilat Yadayim la'atzot siyag l'taharot, to make a fence for taharot, for purifications. We're going to now look what this means for purification. So let's take a look, page 54, Masechet Shabbat. Okay, there was a day that they were setting the halakha, and they had a lot of rabbis get together, and they were setting the halakha. And one day, a lot of Bet Shammai students showed up to make the halachot, right? They closed it off, and only Bet Shammai students were in their majority, and they made the Yudchet Gezerot, right? The 18 decrees that day. And one of them included what? The Shemona Hesadavar Gazru, Manu Shemona Hesadavar, the Tnan El Poslin at the Truma, the Hayadayim, and the Yadayim, the hands. Because the hands are busy. Ata Shloima, and he made a gezer lekachim, but ata inhu begozer afu truma. So Masechet Shabbat says it clearly. What did Shlomo make the Netilat Yadayim for? For kachim. That before the Kahanim ate from the korbanot, they had to wash their hands. So Shlomo HaMelech, they made the gezer Netilat Yadayim for eating kachim. Kahanim eating kachim, they have to wash their hands until they die. Came that day when they made the 18 gezerot, and the Beit Shammais, right? And they came and they made gezerah for Netilat Yadayim, and they added on for what? Netilat Yadayim for teruma. So before a Kohen ate truma, he had to wash his hands. So now this is what I'm saying. It's gezerah for another gezerah, right? So the original gezerah, the original tikkun by Shlomo HaMelech, the gezerah was for washing hands before eating kachim. And then Beit Shammai came and said, and that's the day they established the halacha, so halacha became that, for truma. That's what we're up to right now. And what does it mean that the Yadayim osket hen? The Yadayim are busy. Right? The Gemara says the hands are busy. That's why they said to wash them. So Rashi gives two pshat. He gives his own pshat and he gives his Rebbe's pshat. So he says, they touch dirty places. Beginai, and it's disgusting. He says, what it means the hands are busy, the hands is always touching everything. Right? We already know before you eat, before you touch a baby, before you wash your hands with soap or Purell, this way you keep it clean. So the Chacham said, you have dirty hands, who knows what you're doing, then you go and you touch a truma, you touch the kachim. So wash your hands beforehand. That's the way Rashi understands the Gezerah. But he says, but my rabbi said, maybe they touch their hands with tuma. So Rashi, he doesn't bring the rest of the Rashi here, remember after Shabbat, but Rashi says I have a problem with this. If the rabbis, my rabbis taught me, the reason why you wash your hands at Til Sidayim is because you might touch tuma. But if I touch tuma, I have to go into the mikveh with my whole body, not just my hands. What does the Til Sidayim help? Doesn't help. So the Ritva, Shabbat, the Ritva says what? Ritva says the whole point, it was psychological training. In order to tell the Kahanim, you know, you have to eat truma. You have to eat truma when you're tahor, completely, head to toe. Meaning you went to mikvah and everything. But how are we going to remind you to always be clean? So do Netilat Yadayim before you eat truma, and that's going to tell you you have to always be clean. It's going to train you that you should be clean. So that's what the Ritva explains it. So the Ritva is explaining it was psychological training. So they learn how to be more careful with Tumah and Tahara. Right? So again, the whole Gezerah is because their hands were busy. Hands are busy, you may have touched Tumah. So I want to remind you to make sure you're Tahar. So wash your hands. Shlomo Melech said it. Kachim. Shammai said also for Truma. So how did it get to Netilat Yadayim for bread? Right? How did that happen? So Amar Rav Idi Bar Avin, Amar Yitzchak Bar Yishan, Netilat Yadayim lechuin mipnei serach Truma. Because they made a gezerah on Truma, so they went ahead and made a gezerah for all bread, for all anyone's bread, not just Truma bread. So it's literally a 3-time gezerah. Gezerah on Kachim, Truma because of Kachim, in order to make sure the Kahanim do it, because the Kahanim, if no one else is doing it, maybe the Kahanim won't do it either. Right? If you're only doing it for Truma bread, they might not do it all the time. So now do it for all bread. Serach Truma. Because of Truma, we're going to wash our hand for all the time. And the Chachamim put in Gezerah, their hands are considered like are considered tummy, and you have to wash them. You can't eat Truma with it, you can't eat kachim with it, and you can't eat even chulin with it. Therefore, you have to wash your hands. The sages therefore decree that all must wash your hands even before eating non-sacred food, so that people not become accustomed to eating without washing their hands, which would in turn lead to the Kohanim to eat Truma without washing their hands when the Chachamim put a Gezerah of Tumah on their hands.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
Isn't there a general rule states that you cannot make a Gezerah on top of Gezerah? How did that come about?
You're right. But it seems, I don't have an answer straight up, but it's because no one really, I also had this issue, but no one seems to be addressing it. That's not where I'm looking at. But it seems to be that these weren't a Gezerah on top of Gezerah, but rather to put the first Gezerah to stand in place. Right? Like if you only did it for Kachim, you would not really do it. So you have to put it for Truma also. You only did it for Truma, you still wouldn't do it. Therefore, you had to put it on Chulin. This way, it's actually done. So it's not like a Gezerah on top of a Gezerah, but rather it's a Sayag, a fence for the original Gezerah. And that's the source. This is the first source for Netilat Yadayim that we eat on bread. Now, the question would be, why only bread? Right? Why bread and none of the other foods? Why bread and none of the other foods? So let's take a look on page 56. The Rambam says, anyone eats bread that you have to say a motzi. You have to wash and say Netilat Yadayim, even if it's chulin, even if it's regular food. It's nothing kaddish, not truma. Ran says, nami davka bepat. Ran says it has to be something you make a meal on, not just a regular fruit or whatever. You have to wash your hands for kvius, a suda kviut, something that you're eating at. So the Labush explains why. The fisha ain rob hatruma ela memine pat, right? Because the chtiv reshit the ganecha vein derech echla mini dagan ela acher she'oisim menu pat. What goes through gam gen ketila ela kishyachol pat. Because what is truma? Okay, truma deoraita is really from the 5 grains. So wheat, barley, spelt, rye, and oats, wine and oil, grapes and olive oil. But wine and oil you're not eating just like that, right? So you have to wash your hand on chulin, which means on the bread, because that's what truma is. So you're still relating it to truma, right? Because truma is bread. It's the wheat. It's that. So therefore, also chulin will be on the bread. The Shulchan Aruch Harav, he says this is going to be another issue we're going to be dealing with later of pataba kisanin, which is really mizonot, right? Matzah, non toki, other things that are mizonot. What happened if you say I'm going to eat a suda on that? Do you have to wash your hands and make a hamotzi? If I'm eating enough non toki, right? Let's say I'm eating enough of that to make it a suda, whatever the shear is. We'll deal with the shear later. Do I have to wash my hands or not? He says yes. You have to wash, and you should make a bracha. Because you're kaveh suda, you're making a suda on it. Yalkut Yosef though does say, Yalkut says it's better not to make a bracha, even if you're going to eat a large amount of cake or you eat a large amount, whatever it is, that's mizonot food. You eat a large amount of it. You wash, but you don't say hamotzi. Okay? But this is the source, Rabotai. This is the source for Netilat Yadayim. Okay. Now we're going to look at the second source. So our first source was what? Shlomo Melech was mitaken something. Beit Shammai was mitaken, and then they were mitaken it on Kol of Klai Yisrael. On page 57, source 12, we bring another Gemara. This Gemara, Mesechet Berachot, Daf Nun Gimel Amud Bet. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav, Amrei La B'mitnita Tana. It's taught in our Mishnah, taught in our Braita what? V'hit Kadishtem. Right, Vayikra. V'hit Kadishtem. What do you mean V'hit Kadishtem? Elu Mayim Rishonim. These are the first waters. V'hitem Kiddushim. You should be holy. Elu Mayim Achronim. These are the end waters. Ki Kadosh. Zeh Shemen. This is the oil that they would use their oil at the end of the Seudah. They would make their hands oily. Ani Hashem Elokechem Zo Beracha. This is Berkat HaMazon. So you have a pasuk that says Kadishtem, you should make yourself holy. And in order to make yourself holy, you wash your hands with Netilat Yadayim. So that's the second source for Netilat Yadayim in the Talmud. The second source is to make yourself holy from the pasuk in Vayikra, Kadishtem. Okay. Yeah, just to mention, since it's something to make yourself holy, in the Yalkut Yosef over here, he brings what happens if someone, you're going to see it in the Shulchan Aruch, it says, very careful to do mitzvah Netilat Yadayim. If you do not do Netilat Yadayim, or you make it a joke, it causes a person to become poor. He goes into cherem, right, in nidui, and he'll be uprooted from the world. Excommunication, poverty. He has no share in the world to come. he loses his heavenly protection. It's considered as if he was with a zonah. The Gemara Masechet Sotah says, a person who eats without making Yadayim, it's as if he was with the zonah. It's as if he was with a prostitute. His bread is considered tameh if he doesn't wash his hands. Okay, so it's a very, 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 very important din to wash your hands appropriately. The Mishnah Berurah says, Tam Netilat hu Mishnei Devarim. So he's going to sum up what we just learned. The reason why I wash Netilat Yadayim is for two reasons. Reason number one, it's an ancillary decree, it's an add-on gezerah because of truma. Behind keeping the Yadayim oskinot hem and again b'chol davar was man sheyeh noeg truma v'tahara v'kanim achol truma yitzrich l'ito Yadayim and devei from kaid machil truma kidei shelo yitma'u b'negiatan v'chidei shiragilin hakohanim b'zeh gezru gam al kain al kol ish Yisrael ayachol pasha asel achol ad shito yada v'gam achshav shein kohanim ayachol truma v'pnei atuma v'bat kanazel kidei shiraglayim b'nei yeshiva b'nei Yisrael k'sheyevnu b'et hamikdash every man l'achol b'tahara. So Mishnah Berurah says, even though today we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we don't have kachim, we don't have truma, no one's eating truma or kachim, still we're keeping this halacha in place because Be'ez Hashem, Mashiach is going to come, Mashiach, the Beis Hamikdash is going to be there, and the Kahanim are going to come, and they have to be ready, and they have to remember, they have to wash their hands, and it's all done in order to remind them that they should be tahar.
Emotion?
Okay. Yeah.
For mezonot, we have to wash with a cup, like we do for hamotzi, or just wash the hands? Okay.
If what? If you're eating
Shulchan
how much?
Aruch says no mezonot.
How much mezonot?
Pot. They said if it's pot, not bread. If it's non-toki and stuff like that.
Right.
If it's a meal.
If you're eating a large amount to be
Oh, they made 216 grams.
Right.
Not like any amount.
Right. No.
That's a meal.
Talking about a big amount. Right. So you're being kaveh suda. So then you wash your hands with a cup, and you according to also you won't make a bracha. But if you did make a bracha, it's okay. You have what to be relying on.
All right.
Say again?
We have to say Birkat Hamazon afterwards.
Yes, if you're Kaveh Suda, you have to Birkat Hamazon. Right. Another reason is to be clean and to be kadosh. V'samchu Gemara v'hitkadishtem v'yitem kedushim. The Gemara uses the pasuk v'yitem kedushim. That's how we learn. You have to wash your hands and be holy. So very interesting where the Gzer until Yadayim comes. So like we said, it's not a Torah requirement, but it's a Gezerah. It's to be Kadosh. The Rambam says, Kol ha'oichel patch mevarchen alav ma'iti tzarech netila Yadayim tchila b'sayf. Anyone who washes their hand, who eats bread has to wash their hands beginning and end. Right? Some people, unfortunately, they learn from sometimes they learn from the Ashkenazim. Ashkenazim don't do so much Mayim Achronim, right? Certain Ashkenazim, they are lenient when it comes to Mayim Achronim. They say today you don't have the salt of Sodom or whatever the problematic stuff. They don't wash their hands at Mayim Achronim. But we, by the way, our halacha is that we do wash Mayim Achronim. Each person should not be makel in this. Rambam says anyone who eats hamoitzi should wash in the beginning and end. Vav opi shehi pat chulin, even if it's pat chulin and not truma. Vav opi she'en yadav mulkul kolot ben yodei lehen l'tuma. And even if your hands are not dirty, and even if you didn't touch anything tamei, right? He will not eat lo yochel ad sheyitel shtei yadav. Chen kol davar shetibalu b'mashkin. So to anything that you dip into water also requires Netilat Yadayim. We're going to deal with this later. Okay, that's what you do on Pesach by night when you dip the vegetable into karpas, into the salt water, or the karpas into the salt water. You wash your hands beforehand without a bracha. That's based on this. I mean, something you dip inside the water, you have to wash your hands. We'll deal with that at a later issue. There was. And this can be found on page 73 in the Yalkut Yosef English edition. Harav Yosef Dog Soloveitchik, the Beit Halevi, famous Sefer Beit Halevi. We bring it a lot in the Parsha class. And he was very careful with Netilat Yadayim. And he was once asked by somebody, why are you so careful? Shlomo HaMelech made it for Kachim, for Karbanot. Then the disciples of Hillel and Shammai extended it to Truma. And then it was extended to eating ordinary bread. So why you got to be so careful? Why you have to be so careful? You don't have to be so careful with it. It's a gezerah. It's okay if you're lenient. So Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, the Beit Levi, replied with the mashal. He said, a wealthy man built a mansion, and within it he had a special door installed. The door was decorated with gold and jewels, a symbol of his fabulous wealth. Years later, he began to lose his money, and he slowly sold all his possessions. Nevertheless, he refused to sell the special door. Explaining his decision, he said that as long as he kept this door, it means he had hope of someday regaining his former status. If he would sell the door, it means that he's given up hope of ever becoming rich again. The Beit Levi said, there are many mitzvot that we had that were associated with korbanot, and none of them are applicable today since the Beit Midrash was destroyed. But we have one mitzvah that's still connected to korbanot, and that's the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim before a seudah, before we eat bread. As long as we show Hashem that we're careful with this mitzvah, that means we have a chance for the Beit Midrash to come back. We have a chance to bring korbanot again. But if we're not careful in this mitzvah, then there's no chance for anything chas v'shalom. Therefore, he was very, very careful when it came to Netilat Yadayim. Right? This is a way of a gadol thinks. He thinks backwards. Right? He goes, the whole Netilat Yadayim is from korbanot. It means I'm doing korbanot right now. So think about it that way. Every time you wash your hands for bread, you're doing something related to korbanot. You're doing a mitzvah that's related to eating kachim, eating truma. That's probably why they, how much status we put on bread, right? Remember your grandparents would kiss the bread, right? They would kiss it and put it down, right? How they would do that. You never threw bread. Even the crumbs that you be careful with. They would put the bread, they'd always say, put the face up, right? When I was little, I never understood what face up means. Bread is bread, you put it down on the table. No, you put it face up. Matzah also, they say, is a face and there's a back to every side. Our parents understood, our grandparents understood the holiness that's associated with pot. The pot is a reminder of Truma. Truma is a reminder of korbanot. It's very, very much connected. Okay. We're going to continue with the next topic. And this is the cup that's used for Netilat Yadayim. Okay, what type of cup can be used for Netilat Yadayim? What's the material? How much it has to hold? And halachot like that. So on page 59, Gemara Masechet Kulin, Daf Kuf Zayin, Amar Le Rav Shesha LaMeimar. Rav Shesha was asking a Meimar, Him Kifirato Amana, are you careful to wash your hands with a cup that's intact? So Amar Le Meimar Ein. He said, yes, I'm careful to use a good cup. Achazuta, are you careful about the color of the water? Amar Le Meimar Ein. He said, yes. Ashiura, are you careful with the amount of water? Amar Le Meimar Ein. Yes. All your questions. You use a cup, make sure the water is good, you make sure it's enough. Yeah. Everything. Others say, Amana v'achazuta, on the cup being intact and the color of the water, kaftina, we're careful. Ashir loy kaftina, but the amount of water we're not so careful of. The Tanya, as we learned, me revi'it notin yadayim echad afilu shnayim v'lohi shani hata mishum dika'ato misheret tahara. Says we're not so careful about the measurement because you can wash two people's hands with 1 cup of a revi'it. And the Gemara then says, no, this is different because originally there was enough. Therefore, if 1 revi'it can wash 2 people's hands, and that would be good because the cup had a revi'it. Atkin Rav Yaakov minahar bakud netalo bat revi'ata. Atkin Rashi what's it? Because kauza bat revi'ata. They said there were 2 rabbis, Rav Yaakov from Nahar, Rav Ashi and Huzal. They made sure to use a vessel that had a revi'it. Okay, that's going to be the halacha. He needs to have a revi'it. Rashba, page 60. Rashba says, Chotav b'halachot is written in the halachot of the Bahag, halachot gedolot. The had the kafinan amana da asmichunan rabbanon al mechatat. The reason why we have to use a cup that's intact, it's not cracked, doesn't have holes in it, is because the rabbis are comparing it to the vessel that's used for the para aduma. Right? You have the para aduma, you're making the mechatat, you're making the water to sprinkle. There it had to be whole. Cup has to be a whole cup. Inami, kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, or similar to the way the kahanim had to wash their hands and their feet, which is written that you have to use a cup. So it's comparable to those cups. Therefore, the cup has to be intact. The Mishnah in Maseches Yadayim, the kol hakelim notin liyadayim afilu b'chlei galalim b'chlei avanim b'chlei adama. You can use a cup of any type, even if it's made out of animal dung, right? So if animal dung is the excrement that comes out of an animal, you shape it, make it hot, and you make it into a cup. Even that you're allowed to use. Any cup. Any cup is permissible. Shulchan Aruch, kol hakelim kasher. Any vessel is kosher to be a cup. Afilo keli gilalim. Kelim asum efes bakar afar. Even if something mixed animal dung mixed with dirt. But keli avonim and keli adam. All types of cups are okay. What about plastic cups or paper cups, which are pretty much disposable? Is a disposable item considered a keli or not? This is also related, by the way, to the hilchot of kiddush, right? Kiddush. Can you make kiddush on a plastic cup? So you've seen some people that do this shtick. They take a plastic cup. They say, "Oh, one cup is not enough. I'll put 2 cups, and now I can make kiddush." Doesn't work that way. Doesn't make a difference if you put 5 cups. The question is a cup considered a keli? The plastic cup, paper cup, is it considered a keli? Or since it's disposable, it's not considered a keli, and you throw it out. What's the din? So the Minchat Yitzchak says, "Kimun the ein derech klal hishamash v'hem pa'amayim." Since usually it's not the way to use this cup twice, right? Unless you met my grandmother, she used to take the cups and wash them, the plastic cups. But most people, they use the cup once and they throw it out. And it's compared to what we learned in Maseches Kelim. Therefore, by that logic, it's also not easy to use for kiddush. She says, since if it's a disposable vessel, it does not have the status of a keli. Therefore, you cannot use it for Yadayim, and you cannot use it for kiddush. That's the Minchat Yitzchak. Okay, that is the Minchat Yitzchak. Minchat Yitzchak says you cannot use it, not for kiddush, not for Yadayim. What about Yakut Yosef? So he brings the Yakut Yosef, source 20, and this is also the opinion of Rav Shmuel Wozner. What do they say? Cost hausui minayer or miketon, cup made out of plastic, cardboard, or whatever. Hayochol lahaslik et hamayim betocho, as long as it can hold water in it. Even disposable cups, kashirim, the Netilat Yadayim, is considered kosher for Netilat Yadayim. So according to the Shmuel Wozner, according to the Yakut Yosef, no, it is permissible to use a cup that is disposable. It's not an issue.
Sometimes in the hotels, when you go, they don't have the cups in the sink, so you take the coffee cups they have prepared already.
And you use,
them. Yeah. Like
according
there's
to
no
Shmuel Wozner, it's permissible because you can use it during the meal. So the way they're touching up disposable, the Mishnah, there's a Mishnah that says a disposable cup is not good. The question is, what does it mean disposable? So Rav Shmuel Wozner says disposable means you use it one time and you can't use it anymore. But usually when you use a plastic cup, I can use it again. I can during my one meal, I'll use it 10 times. I'll pour orange juice, there's that juice I can use. So it's not considered disposable. Yeah, you'll throw it out after the meal, but that's not considered disposable. That's the logic of the Alka Joseph and Shmuel Wozner. Is that yes, it's disposable, but you can still use it, right? During that meal, and that's therefore it's considered not disposable. The Orla Tzion gives another idea, and it's preferable to do this. But who adin? By the way, that's the Alka Joseph would hold that in Kiddush too. So lalacha for us Faradim who follow the Alka Joseph, you could use a disposable cup for Kiddush. So you do not have to put 2 plastic cups. 1 plastic cup is enough to make Kiddush on. It's preferable if you have a different cup to use the other cup. But if you don't have another cup, you can 100%, according to the Alka Joseph, Shmuel Wozner, to use disposable cup for Kiddush. What does the Orla Tzion say? So of Abba Shaul, right? Ben Tzion Abba Shaul. What did he say? But who adin? She'enli told because chad pami in bedato uzarko. With Yavad she'en lo keli acher you told behem yalda beloy bracha. So the Orla Tzion says, if you have to use an Netilat Yadayim cup, a disposable cup, you have no other cup, so use it. But don't make a bracha on Netilat Yadayim from it. But what you could do, or what you could do is use this cup permanently. Like say I'm going to use it as long as I could, right? Use it some more. If you plan to use it some more, then it's considered a keli, and then you're allowed to do it even with a bracha. So that's the Orla Tzion's chiddush. The Orla Tzion's chiddush is to use it again. Here or other people will use the cup again afterward, then it's no longer considered a one-use cup, and it gains the status of a keli. Then it would be permissible. So the easiest way, the whole idea is really pretty much, is if you say, yes, this is a disposable cup, it is a disposable cup, but I'm not throwing it out, I'm going to use it again. Use it for the week, use it for the next 3 days, whatever it is. Once you say I'm going to do that, then it has the shame keli, and then you can use it and say a bracha on it. Okay?
How is Rebbe eat the minimum?
Say again?
They say the minimum is Rebbe eat.
Right.
So that's why 3 ounces.
Yeah.
So how can it wash both hands 3 times? I mean, it's not enough to wash the whole hand on top of that.
Do you have to wash your hands 3 times? That's what we do.
No, we don't.
One.
But the truth is, 1 time is already enough.
But
right,
even then, it's not the whole hand. It's not enough for 2 hands.
Okay, so
only the fingertips, maybe.
The
like
cup is kosher. Cup is kosher. You can fill it up again if you need to. The cup has to be able to hold the reveal. Say, Avram.
Malkiel halachically, 1 and 1 is going to cover both hands. That's sufficient to be good enough.
What you can do is you can take the cup. I have some water, and you can just turn it over your hand, right? 1 cup, and you take it and you just flip it over like this. You don't have to go back and forth. Well, you can just flip the whole cup over your hands. So then you only need 1 thing of water. You don't need more than that.
If it doesn't touch the whole hand, what happens? Some parts are still dry.
You really only need to get up to your knuckles, right? That's the real Netilah. The palm doesn't have to get washed. So we're talking about minimum halacha. We'll get to those.
Right. It's just
we'll get to those. You're right. And we know the Gemara says that if a person fills up his cup a lot of water, and will have a lot of bracha. So yeah, we do add more. But that's what we're getting into next. What happened?
Our generation we have a lot of water.
So now generation we have a lot of water. It's very true. Okay. Maseches Chulin. Kuf Zayin again. Amarava Keli Shenika Bekoinis Mashke. Ain't not mentally a dime. Rabba Keli She'ain boy revealed. Ain't not mentally a dime. Okay. So Rabba says 2 things. If the cup has a hole big enough for water to enter through the hole, then you're not allowed to use that cup. And it has to have a revi'it of water in it. Now, what's a revi'it of water? So this is a machloket already, we all know, because there's a lot of times we use revi'it. The Piskei Tshuvot says, Veshir ha-revi'it yedua it's 150 cc, 150 milliliters, right? 150 ml. That's according to the Chazon Ish. And according to Rav Chaim Noah, right, it's going to be 86 cc's, 86 ml. According to the Yalkut Yosef, here on page 123, a Revi'it is 81 cc, which is 3 fluid ounces. Okay, so for us, Svaradim, it's 3 fluid ounces is a Revi'it. Again, like I said by Pesach, you will want your cup to be a little bit more than 3, right? Because if you need 3 minimum, and if you have a 3 fluid ounce cup, it's gonna fall out. You're not gonna wash with 3. It's very not likely. So you want to get a cup that's 3.1, 3.2 at least minimum to use. This way, you know at least you have 3 in there for sure. That's always my my take on it, because I'm scared that I'm pouring flip this that I don't have any more in there. So I want the right amount in there.
Were you able to find a cup like that?
I found one. I had like a 3.2 glass cup. Yeah, I did. I found one. I used it for the Kiddush on Pesach. Yeah, I found a 3.2 nice stem glass wine.
You'll tell me what store later.
Avram?
Yeah. Question. You know, when we do omelets at the dime, one hand touches the other, the dry and the wet. You have to rewash again.
Okay.
And let's say in the morning I wash. If my wet hand touches the dry hand, do I have to rewash again? Is it the same concept, or you can just go over it, no problem?
Well, we're washing more than once, right? So you keep washing it, it wouldn't be a problem.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Once you're washing it more than once, you're washing. That's the whole point of washing it again and again, right? To make sure that it doesn't go back and forth. It's not making it tummy again, stuff like that. So you can wash it.
You know,
as long as you're washing it the way we
Rabbi.
do it, you don't have to rewash it again. Okay?
Okay, so it doesn't matter, right?
No,
Just
shouldn't matter. Not according to what I understand, no. As long as you're washing it, you're washing it. Even if you touched it, you're still washing it again. That's the whole point of washing it again. Saying in the morning, that's why some people have in the morning a minute to actually do it 8 times, not 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? That's my minhag as well. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4 times. 8 total washes. Okay. All right. So he says in Piskei it's better to use a bigger cup with at least 150 cc. If it has less than 86 or less than 81, according to us, it'll not be a kosher cup. You have to check. Sometimes they have this little kitty Netilat Yadayim cup that may not be kosher. You have to be careful. Okay. We're going to start the next idea. I don't think we're going to finish it, but let's take a look at it at least. What happens if there's a hole? So that's what Rava said. If there is a hole big enough for water to enter, you're not allowed to use this cup. So the Torah says if there's a hole that's large enough for liquid to enter, meaning that if one places the vessel into a liquid, it will enter through the hole, and that hole is larger than the spout for the liquid exits, is no longer considered a cave. Even if underneath the hole you can hold the revi'it. You have a big cup. Okay, you have a big cup, and you have a hole in the cup over here. Okay, I can't make the hole, but let's say.
No, as long as it's damaged, no.
So you have this hole now. You see right here. You have this hole, and when you put this into top of water, the water will come inside. So this cup is not permissible to use because you have too big of a hole here. Even if there's a revi'it on the bottom part over here, where the hole is not, you still can't use it. Because what happens when you're going to pour it out, it's coming through a non-keli part. This is considered not a keli anymore because it has a big hole. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you can't use it. Because if you use it, it's not a keli. So even if it has a revi'it on bottom, you're still not good. Right? That's what Shulchan Aruch says. The emnika, the koines mashke, if it has a hole that it could get mashke inside through the hole, the hainu sh'im yasimu oto al mashke Yachnisu b'toicha derech hanikah. Will go through the hole. Who gado minikav shem ashkim shebetoicha keli yoitzim boy. And the hole is bigger than the spout through which the liquid exits, so it's got to be bigger than the cup beginning. Okay. It cannot be used. Even if it has a revi'it on the bottom of it, you can't use it. Okay. The Mishnah Brura says, if only a small cut, if it only had a small hole, the water only came out, but you couldn't fill it up through the hole, right? Then you could use it. And you can use it. So if it had a small hole that liquid is escaping from it, but can't enter through it, then you can still use it. It's still considered a keli. Now the Shulchan Aruch adds, "Behind mili shenoitel derech piv lamala, shemash mimenu min hanekev lamala eino chashav keli. Menim sash eino mayim boim al yido mehakeli." Because if you're pouring it out from the top, this part is not considered a keli anymore. But then he says, "Avol im noitel derech hanekev." But what if I wash my hands through the hole? Okay, so I have a revi'it of water in here, and then I wash my hands through the hole. So when it's coming out of a keli. The whole problem is if I send it through the top part's not a keli. But if I send it through the hole, it is coming out of a keli. So would I be able to do that? He says yes. Shari. Because you have a revi'it here. So if you have a broken cup, that a lot of water can enter through the side, but as long as your revi'it is on the bottom, Shulchan Aruch says you can wash your hands through the hole. Don't wash your hands through the top. Wash your hands through the hole. Okay, yeah, Malkiel.
Moshe, let's say this cup over here. You see there's a little crack on top.
Chip on the top.
Okay. Yeah, it broke a little bit. So is it still good from the top? It can still hold the.
It holds the revi'it.
Just over here, it broke recently.
So it's at a rim, right? So it's at the rim.
Yeah. It's like the rim. That's okay, or it's better not to use it?
Okay, I don't know at this moment. I don't want to say anything at the moment. Let's go through this and we'll get back to that. I don't know if this today, but we'll definitely get back in that. Okay. But the rim is different. We're talking about a hole in the middle, but we'll get to that in a moment. In a few minutes. Okay, so let's just finish up this idea. The Mishnah Brura argues on this. He says Paiskim disagree. He says once it's a hole that's big enough for liquid to enter, it's considered a broken keli, and one may not use it for Netilat Yadayim, even through the hole. So Mishnah Brura argues with the Shulchan Aruch. Mishnah Brura says you can't do it. Like I said, even if you have a revi'it in the bottom, you cannot use it through the hole. You can't use it through the hole. What he says, what does the Yalkut Yosef say? The Yalkut Yosef says, you don't use it from the hole or it's cracked, you can't use it. If it is a hole big enough for liquid to enter, the water outside the vessel will enter into the vessel and it can hold the reed in the air beneath the hole, and he has no other vessel, then he couldn't do Netilat Yadayim through it. He may use that through the hole. But he shouldn't say Netilat Yadayim. According to this Yalkut Yosef, if you're going to do it through the hole, you don't make a bracha on Netilat Yadayim. However, in the English Yalkut Yosef, he says you could say Netilat Yadayim. He says his father said you could say. In the Hebrew Yalkut, he says you can't. So here in the Halacha Brura of Rabbi David Yosef, he also writes that you could make the bracha. He says you're allowed to. He says once the Shulchan Aruch said you're allowed to use it, you're allowed to make a bracha on it. That's it. So you have to know which Yalkut Yosef version you're using. But according to this one, according to what we have here, and according to what we have here, he says right here, you have no other keli. Mainly keli acher rashai litol yadav mimenu, u'levad sheyitel derech hanekev. As long as you're washing through the hole, below derech pi hakeli, not through the mouth of the keli, not through the top. U'meikar din, and for the din, rashai af levarach al netilazu. You're allowed to even say the bracha of al Netilat Yadayim on that. I added on here in my tzurba that you would. So even though he highlighted it, you do not say the bracha. I switch it to you do say the bracha based on the teachings that we have in the English edition as well as in the Halakha Barah of Rav David Yosef. He says this applies to a hole, but a cracked vessel, if it has a crack, even if it can hold the reed below the crack, and even if it's only big enough for water to exit, it's not big enough for the water to enter, a crack is disqualified. Chashik kishaver keli. Even for Tumah v'Tahara. Because the crack will eventually spread. So I'm not understanding. This crack is in the middle of the keli. The crack is in the middle of the keli. Not entirely sure what he is. It's a vessel with a hole, but a cracked vessel, we're worried it's going to crack more. The Taz disagrees. The Taz says, no, the crack is like a hole. If water only exits and doesn't enter, then it's fine. Especially with copper and metal, which are stronger. And a little crack will lead to a bigger crack. So it's not worse than a hole. So the Taz and the Bach disagree with it, whether a cracked vessel is equivalent to one with a hole or more strict, but a metal or other stronger vessels are certainly equivalent to a vessel with a hole. What about plastic? It says aval keli plastic dinim keli cheretz v'yesh lishel lahem sadak kol dehu, and they're disqualified from use with any crack, unless he has no other vessel and does not constantly drip out from the crack. So if you have a plastic and it has a crack, it will be problematic, unless he has no other one to wash from. Okay, so it seems to be a crack. It seems to be a crack in the middle of the keli, not at the top. Right? I'm not sure what to do with a hole, a crack at the brim. There, container's top section has broken off. It still stands solidly and it can hold a reed of water. Maybe used for that if no better container is available.
Not available, but available to get.
So he says you could use it. When using it, one must take care to pour the water from the lowest point of its sides. As many posts from rule, the sides of the container above the level cannot hold water and has lost the status of a keli. So what he's saying here, that you would have to pour it out of that crack, Malkiel. You would have to pour the water out of that crack if you wanted to use that cup.
That part?
Yeah, because that's the lowest part. Once it passes that from the other side, it's no longer in a keli.
Oh wow, interesting. I thought it was the opposite, not to.
That's what he seems to be saying, right? I'll read it again. The top section of the container has been broken. Still permissible technically to use the container for the mitzvah Netilat Yadayim as long as it can still hold or read the water and it can stand on its own, so it's still considered a keli. It's not spilling. One will recite the blessing of Netilat Yadayim. This is the ruling of the Halakha Barah. The Mishnah Barah ruled that this container may be used only if the owner has decided to continue with regular despite. Okay. Whenever possible, therefore it's best to choose an. Where did I see this? Hold on. When using it, one must take care to. This is from the top, not from the notes. When using it, one must take care to pour the water from the lowest point of its sides. Since many posts can rule that the sides of the container above the level cannot hold water and have lost the status of a keli. Here, what about this nick in the top? Okay, nick in the top. Mishnah Barah ruled, oh wow, it's getting late, that if the top of the container is nicked and it's certainly still fit within, one must pour the water from the side that is nicked. Okay? Where it has that edge. Show us again, Malkiel, that cup. You have it with you? So right there. So you would technically have to pour it from there. You would have to pour the water out from there.
Where? Show me one more time.
Show them again. From that side, because you see that's lower than the rest of the top.
You
So
have to do
what
it from the
happens
broken
is-
side?
Broken side, yeah.
You have to do it from the crack side?
Yeah, you have to pour it out from the crack.
Hmm.
You have to pour it out from the crack. So if it's such a small nick that you really can't see it, right? Then it's okay. But if it's like that, you have to. Yeah, that seems to be the halacha. So in your cup, you would have to pour it from the nick. Preferably, go get a new cup.
That's what I was thinking.
Preferably, go get a new cup because it's gonna be very complicated to pour it out, and people are gonna come and use it and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So you wanna just get a new cup. If you don't have a new cup now, you can just take a disposable cup and use that until you can get it. You can replace your nice and citizen cup. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Zehu. Kol tov, Shabbat tov
Thank you.
l'kulam.
Also, Laila tov.
Laila tov. Laila.
Event is still brown.
Sure.
From 6 to 8, event is still. Okay. Do I have to say Barachot? I mean the Birkat Torah before I heard something like this when you go to sleep the
But you were planning to wake up.
yeah.
I'll double check. Maybe you have, but I don't think so. Most people wouldn't.
No, I heard there's something
And I saw something that I have to double check. I just put this stuff back. You right? Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Which one? Yeah. What did he say?
He's saying the guy that did live up, young one,
Yeah.
the name the least of the nearest time. He should have one close that like cut him in there and you're not
So
saying
I'm thinking of the color we made.
you're saying like the guy that lit off like it's
Yosef, here's your answer to your question yesterday. Come in. You had a question. Yesterday, you asked me. Come here. You said, how come they say Elahad de Meir Anenu and not Elahad de Rabbi Meir? So he just said the answer.
Don't say that cut it up in there.
Yeah, listen. Oh, why? He's running away. He's telling you the answer.
By the story in the Gemara, it's like the man, right? It's like the man. The Marsha asked, to the Shem is not Miyachi, doesn't single out his name. Sadiq, your mother alive. It brings you right because it says in the pasuk, "Okay, Avram, the Tach Yitzchak." When I say "Okay, Yitzchak," strangers going to Yisrael was alive. So what do people say when they like cousin Meir and Inu? They're saying in the Marshall
Because it was said during his lifetime. They shouldn't be saying that.
He's saying
So how could you say it? So what was he talking about?
It's just a hint for his name. So this is a hint for his name that when he's saying cousin Meir. But really, you were saying the second answer, the answer brought there more that because the Meir Lonu the other stuff. The names during the times of the Greeks, the name is kind of
So when you're saying the cousin Meir, you're not saying the cousin Meir Balnes. You're saying the Meir mace of Hanukkah, of the light of Hanukkah. Wow, that's a whole different shot. Now you understand why you say Lachad Meir, now they have the Rebbe Meir.
They have to say the Meir and